Hey everybody, thanks for joining me in this video where I'm going to talk about how to find good scholarly sources to use in your papers that you write for an English class like one of mine, or any class here at Ivy Tech Community College. This video is not intended to be a comprehensive video that's going to show you every single place that you can go to find sources. This is really just a video that's going to show you the highlights of where to go to find sources using a process of research very similar to my own process of research. So if I'm going to be writing something or I'm looking for scholarship to help support lecture notes that I'm putting together, I'm going to walk you through the same kind of research process that I would be able to do, the same databases and general resources that could help me in my production of something with sources. We're going to be digging into the Ivy Tech library for a big portion of this video. And this video can be helpful to you if you're in English 111, learning how to write a paper, or all the way up to a 200 level literary survey course, looking for some supplementary materials to bring into a discussion that's a literary analysis. As such, we're going to keep this pretty straightforward. And like all of my videos, I don't have a script, so you're going to get me in candid, real lecture sort of approach here. We're going to cover where to go to find sources and then how you might gather up some of those sources. Other videos that I'll be making help touch on things like how to tell popular sources from scholarly sources or primary sources from secondary sources, even how to use source material as part of the research process. But this video is really focused on just where to find sources. And I think really without further ado, let's go ahead and just get into it. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pull up the Ivy Tech library. And the web address for the Ivy Tech library is library.ivytech.edu. I'm going to turn on screen share now and have it available as we walk through. So the Ivy Tech library is going to be your number one stop for finding good sources to include in your paper. Unlike a brick and mortar library, of course, this one's open all the time. And you can log in at any time of day or anywhere that you have an internet connection in order to find your sources. But before we get into the actual databases, I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about when you're finding sources, what are you going to be doing? What are you going to be searching for when you're looking up sources? So I thought what we would do is I'll pick a topic. Just because it was a topic that was being talked about in one of my classes this week. We're talking about whether cannabis, marijuana, should be legalized in the state of Indiana, as an example. I thought maybe we'd start there. We just use that as a topic. And I think one of the reasons why it sticks out to me as a really great topic is because is built into the fact of what I just said. The actual drug itself goes by a variety of names. And knowing the variety of names or the variety of terms and vocabulary that can be relevant to your searching is really the first central step of doing good research at the college level. So I really recommend, before you even get into the library databases and start looking for sources, you want to make sure that you have a decent understanding of the basic information regarding your topic. You want to make sure that you have appropriate search terms and you have all of the terms that are identified that you might want to use as part of your research process. So even though we're looking at the library first, I'm going to recommend an unconventional starting point for you when it comes to doing academic research, and that's Wikipedia. And I'll wait for the head exploding sound to die down from wherever you are in the world and watching this particular video. You've probably been told for most of your academic life that Wikipedia is something that you are supposed to completely avoid, something that you should never go to, something that can be easily manipulated, or something that can be used to trick you in some way, or something that's never going to have its facts or its information correct. First, that's honestly overblown in so many ways. In fact, studies have been done that show the actual factual content on Wikipedia is no more or less accurate than any other encyclopedia that's out there. Studies have also been done that show that Wikipedia has more of a variety of its information for where to go to find things, many more articles than a traditional encyclopedia is going to have. And in fact, across America, many graduate courses have, as part of an assignment, going in and building out or filling out Wikipedia pages using scholarly sources or books or information to make information more rich, because there's a general recognition across all people that if you're going to look up something online, this is a place that you're going to probably end up as part of that process. Now, the prohibition on quote unquote using Wikipedia in your research is really more of a prohibition on citing Wikipedia in your research. You don't want to pull quotes or factual information from a Wikipedia article and cite the Wikipedia article itself in your paper. This is mostly because a lot of the information that's in Wikipedia you can find in reputable, scholarly, primary or secondary sources elsewhere. And those are just stronger sources to cite when you were writing a paper for college. Wikipedia, like all sorts of reference materials, technically qualifies as what's called a tertiary source in terms of academic work. And because it's a tertiary source, those are the types of sources that we tend not to cite in the papers that we write for courses. But that does not mean that you can't use tertiary sources at the start of your research process. So if I were going to start talking about a paper, doing research for a paper on whether cannabis should be legalized in the state of Indiana, I'm going to come to Wikipedia probably as a first stop, and I'm going to simply look up legalization of I'm going to type in something, right? So there's legality of cannabis, and this is related to worldwide. And then there's the legalization of non-medical cannabis in the United States. So I'm going to click this. And this specific website is going to provide for me an overview of the basic information related to this topic, right? So this is as of today, which is November 16th, 2023. In the United States, the non-medical use of cannabis is legalized in 24 states, plus Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia, and decriminalized in 7 states. Decriminalization refers to a policy of reduced penalties for cannabis offenses, typically involving a civil penalty for possessing small amounts, similar to how minor traffic violations are treated, instead of criminal prosecution or a threat of arrest. In jurisdictions without penalty, the policy is referred to as legalization, although the term decriminalization is sometimes used for this purpose as well. So I want to start here with just this paragraph, right? Think about the number of search terms that we could draw from this paragraph to start doing academic research in the actual databases. Non-medical, or the non-medical use of cannabis. We've already mentioned how you can look up cannabis and you can look up marijuana. Cannabis is the official name of the plant, so that might be a starting point in terms of writing a paper that's of a more academic quality. It's legal in 24 states. Here's a map of the United States where we can see where it is legal and where it is not for recreational use and for medical use. We also have the introduction of the term decriminalization. So decriminalization and legalization, or decriminalizing versus legalizing for sales in dispensaries around the nation. This is going to be part of this process too. The idea also related to the fact that in 2012, ballot initiatives in Washington and Colorado were the first to legalize the state versus a state of Vermont legalizing it through the state legislature. Cannabis remains prohibited under the Controlled Substances Act of 1970, and the Justice Department generally does not persecute or prosecute individuals in states where it's legalized. And then hemp and hemp-derived products have been legal since the enactment of the 2018 Farm Bill. Okay, that's a lot of very basic information, and I could continue reading this article. And as I read the article and learn more about the topic, that is one of the first crucial steps toward understanding a topic, so yet you know what kinds of sources to look for, and you know what types of terms you can use to actually search for those sources. So I'm going to use some of the information that I found up here as my starting point. Now, if anybody were to object to the fact that you're using Wikipedia as a starting point for your research, I don't think that that really reflects the reality of the situation, and probably is something that you might want to just nod along and then move on. But if somebody were to reject the idea that you would be using Wikipedia as a starting point, how dare you, right? How dare your English professor say use Wikipedia as a starting point? To placate that person, there are some other options that you have to learn more about information related to this specific topic. At our library at library.ivytech.edu, you can click on A to Z resources. And this is an opportunity for you to scroll down to the Opposing Viewpoints database, which is actually housed by Gale, the publisher called Gale, hosts what's called Opposing Viewpoints in Context. Opposing Viewpoints in Context is a nice starting point for information related to just about any topic that you might want to find information for. So click on Opposing Viewpoints in Context, see, hosted by Gale here at the top. And now you can search for information related to your topic. You can do this one of two ways. You can use the search bar here, or you can come over to Browse Issues. I'm going to click Browse Issues because this is going to show you, if you ever need a place to go to help try to find a topic to write about for your paper, there are a lot of topics that are included here on this page, and it's a wonderful opportunity for you to have a starting point. We're going to come over here, and if I search under C first for cannabis, you can see that it's not included. So even if, use that as this is a great example of a search term that is not included or is written one way in one source and is different in another source. So cannabis itself is not included on this list, but if we scroll down to the M's, we can see that it's included here under marijuana. So now let's click this. This is going to get us to our Opposing Viewpoints in Context page. And you can see that there are featured viewpoints. These would be op-eds or editorials or opinion pieces in some way. There are academic journal articles cited here, magazine articles, videos and statistics, other reference material, audio, such as stories from National Public Radio, other websites and news-related topics that you might want to go to. The starting area here, the overview section, every Opposing Viewpoints page has an overview section. We can click Read More. And this essentially functions as a dictionary, or I'm sorry, as an encyclopedia entry on the idea itself and what surrounds the controversial aspect of the topic. So you can see the opening paragraph here reads, in common usage, marijuana refers to the dried flowers of the cannabis plant. These flowers are typically smoked to produce a psychoactive high. In addition, the flowers and other parts of the plant can be processed into hashish, oils, extracts, and other refined products that can be smoked, eaten, and vaporized. The effects of a high can be subjective and often vary, depending on whether the user has consumed a cannabis sativa strain, a cannabis indica strain, or a hybrid strain. And then it just continues on down the line. Notice this is, I think, more oriented around the controversial nature of the topic, which does not make it a bad place to start to find additional information. One benefit, much like Wikipedia itself, is the Opposing Viewpoints page is going to give you a sense of where to go to find more general information related to your topic. So you can click articles over here related to the current issues from the Macmillan Social Science Library or from the Gale Opposing Viewpoints online collection. You can click on contents inside the article and jump around up or down the article as necessary. And then there are related subjects that you can click on and learn more about, such as state laws. So if I wanted to click state laws, this would help me find more information related to state laws and on all topics, not just on whether cannabis should be legalized for non-medical or recreational use inside a state. So this is a place where you can find a lot of really good information that's going to serve just as nicely as another reference material like Wikipedia would serve. Okay, let's assume now that we have a basic understanding of our topic. And even if you have a good understanding of your topic, it's good to spend 20, 30 minutes going through the introductory portions or looking at the headings of articles and reference materials to generate a list of search terms. Most good researchers at the college level are simply researchers who are open to the idea that one line of inquiry is going to take them down a road that doesn't yield anything. So then they back up and they start a new line of inquiry. If you become so focused on the idea that the research itself must be the first sources that you find, that's what's going to cause the greatest amount of headache and I think heartache as you're in the process of doing academic research. But let's assume at this point that we have a pretty good understanding of this particular topic. Now, where are we going to go in order to start doing our research? Well, I'm going to recommend to you 4 databases from the library and a 5th database that's outside the library. Incidentally, any of these reference materials, like the Gale Opposing Viewpoints pages or the Wikipedia page, are going to usually be supported with a really robust bibliography. Look here at the references section for the Wikipedia page of the article that we looked at earlier. 227 sources, and further reading has been provided here from a journal called The 60s, and additional links have been provided at the bottom, as well as more pages where you can go to learn more things. Now, all 227 of these sources aren't necessarily high quality scholarly sources, but there's going to be a nice mix in and out. So you can always use those reference pages as a starting point for finding sources too. But if we're going to be looking at the databases that are inside our library, I'm going to recommend 4. And let me list them out to you alphabetically. So the first one is EBSCO. EBSCOhost is an academic journal database where you can go to find information related to general interest articles. It's going to focus on the sciences and the natural sciences, the social sciences. It's going to focus on the humanities. It's going to focus on history. It's going to focus on contemporary articles. EBSCO is the best general purpose database that you have access to through our library. My next recommendation is under J, and it's JSTOR. So JSTOR is also a general purpose database, but I tend to find that JSTOR has the strongest offerings when it comes to the humanities. So things like literature, art, film, theater, history, philosophy, law, languages. All of those things really are best served by the JSTOR database. You can find related topics in EBSCO related to all of those things, but I think JSTOR is a great specialty database when it comes to the humanities. My next recommendation is going to be down in the P's, and this is the Project Muse database. Project Muse is provided by Johns Hopkins University Press, and their specialty are in books. So before I scare you away with the idea of going to find books for your college research writing, first, I want to signal to you that the books that are housed in Project Muse are divided by chapters. So functionally, the difference between a book chapter and a research article is simply just the title and the way it was published. Most book chapters, you can download just one chapter at a time from Project Muse. Most book chapters are going to be pretty straightforward and direct. And if you have books that you can cite as part of your research process through Ivy Tech, that's a tremendous plus that you're going to be able to have. It's quite impressive. So don't write off Project Muse just because the specialty is on books. They also have access to scholarly journals, but the focus is on books in Project Muse. It's also a general purpose database with the humanities and the social sciences. I think their humanities selection is really great. I spend most of my time researching in the humanities. So Project Muse is another one that I would really recommend. My fourth recommendation for the Ivy Tech Library, and my final recommendation for the Ivy Tech Library, is called the ProQuest Research Library. This includes scholarly journal articles and trade publications. It's a general interest database, but I tend to find that its specialty is in the sciences, specifically the social sciences like psychology, sociology, criminal justice, and also in the life sciences and the natural sciences. So things like biology and medicine. ProQuest is a really great place to start to find information. We're going to start at EBSCO, and I want to show you each of these databases, but we're not going to spend equal amount of time in each of these databases in order to keep this video under a certain link. I guess I should probably, before I click on EBSCO, my eye caught this, and I'm going to go ahead and just pause and draw attention to this. We also have a really nice ebook option through our virtual library. These tend not to be popular books that you might pick up at a local bookstore or on the bestsellers list on Amazon. They tend to be a little more focused on research, but there's also a lot of options built into these ebook collections. You might be surprised the kind of stuff that you can find in those databases. Okay, we're going to click on EBSCO and start using this specific database. The first page that you're going to get is you're going to choose which database you want to draw from. There are many databases that are included as part of the EBSCO search. And I think most of us could probably just benefit from doing a select all and then clicking continue. There's a warning that comes up that says selecting all databases may result in a slow response time. If you have unreliable internet at home, you might just want to stick with the very first option, academic search complete. But I'm going to go ahead and select continue on all databases for the sake of showing it to you. Okay, here's our page, right? These are our search term boxes up at the top, and then we're going to have some opportunities to focus on refining our search results below. We know that we're wanting to research the topic of cannabis legalization, but we might also be interested in other search terms associated with it, like marijuana or decriminalization. So I'm going to start here and type in cannabis legalization. I'm also going to say and marijuana legalization. And so this is going to make sure that I'm going to get all articles tagged cannabis legalization as well as all articles tagged marijuana legalization. I'm also interested in marijuana decriminalization because that's part of the research that I'm trying to do here. And I can click this little addition sign off to the side to add a new search field if I want. So I might also say as part of this United States, right? To try to make sure that what I have, my search results are trying to stay as local as possible. Legalization in cannabis or legalization in the Netherlands or legalization elsewhere on Earth might be super interesting, but not maybe relevant to the topic of whether Indiana should. You can also select or not. So for cannabis legalization and marijuana legalization, this would make it so that only articles that say cannabis and marijuana are going to show up. I want it to say or. So cannabis legalization or marijuana legalization. So I'm going to get all articles on both sides. I'm going to make sure that the full text box is clicked. No sense in getting articles that I can't read. I'm also going to make sure that the peer-reviewed box is clicked. So you'll want to watch other videos on how to determine the difference between popular and scholarly sources. But when you click peer-reviewed, it's going to make sure that you're only getting scholarly sources back. I could put additional constraints on my search terms if I want. So for example, I could limit the publication date of the search term, the searches that I get back. Maybe I only want things from January of 2012, because that's when this was passed in Colorado and Washington, right? So I only want information that comes after 2012 because it's relevant to my topic, that information try to be as much as possible. For this particular search, I'm not going to limit it. I can always limit it later, but I'm going to keep it wide open at this point just to see what I get back. I can also come in and make sure that, for example, I'm only getting articles that are in English. And every database that I create, I can put more search terms and frameworks on it. If I do it up here in limit your results up at the top, I can try to provide an overall, but then for every database, I can also select from this database, I want articles. From this database, I want trade publications. From this database, I want things written in English. From this database, I want things written in Dutch, so on and so forth, right? So we've got full text clicked, we've got peer review clicked. I'm not putting any date limitations on this. I do say that I want academic search complete to give me things in English and PDF full text. And these are my search terms. So I'm going to go ahead and click search and see what I get. (1,912) results. And I can now start to look through titles when it comes to legal. So we can search here's one from the Harvard Law and Policy Review from 2014, Marijuana Legalization in Colorado, Learned Lessons. We can see that it's an academic journal. We can see the authors. We can see how many pages it is, 22 pages. That's pretty common for an academic source. We can also see all of these search terms would have returned this article. So if I had looked up narcotics possession, or if I had looked up controlled substance laws, I would also get a copy of this article. These subject terms can be really great for helping you come up with new search terms when you're trying to find good articles. We see that there's a PDF full text available. So now I'm going to click on the title of the article. I'm intrigued by this. Once it's pulled up, it's going to give me an abstract. An abstract is a one-paragraph summary of the contents of the article. So this abstract reads, this article focuses on issues of marijuana legalization in the state of Colorado. Topics include the implementation of the Regulated Marijuana Like Alcohol Act of 2012, or Amendment 64 in Colorado, the campaign of Democratic Governor John W. Hickenlooper, Denver, Colorado Mayor Michael Hancock, and Republican Attorney General John Suthers against decriminalization and adult use of marijuana for recreational purposes, and the Controlled Substances Act. So now I'm thinking to myself, well, this maybe isn't as relevant as I thought it was going to be, but I don't know. I don't have time to sit and read all 22 pages of this. This could be relevant to my research. It might not be relevant to my research. There might be something useful here, but you're going to be very tempted when you start to doubt the quality of an article to just hit back and move on from the article that you're looking for. But I tend to find that if I'm working on something and I find an article and then I decide, I'm not really into that, and I move on, if I change my mind and I in fact want that article again, it can sometimes be very difficult to find it again. So I always say it's a good idea if you find an article that you think might be relevant, if there's a 10% chance that it could be used in your research paper, I think it's always a good idea to click on the PDF full text and download it. So I'm going to click PDF full text here, and then it's going to open here. Now, on my particular browser, which is Safari at the moment on a Mac computer, if I want to download a PDF, I click down in the bottom middle, and then I click the down arrow, and it will download a copy of the PDF to my desktop. If you're in Chrome or Firefox, you might need to actually hit the download button. Sometimes it's an arrow pointing downward. And I think it's a great idea to create a folder on your desktop or wherever it is that things download from a browser and keep all of your articles in that folder. So I've gone ahead and downloaded this one to just hold on to. It might be something that I want to come back to. It might not be something that I want to come back to, but it could be interesting for supporting my essay topic on whether marijuana should be legalized in the state of Indiana. Okay, let's continue looking just to see if there's anything else that could be valuable here. The impact of recreational cannabis legalization on cannabis use and associated outcomes, a systematic review. So here's an article that was published in 2023 on how the impact of recreational use on, or the impact of recreation legalization on cannabis use. That could be relevant in making a case that whatever the argument is related here. So I'm going to click on this specific article. Let's see what the abstract says. Recreational cannabis legalization has become more prevalent over the past decade, increasing the need to understand its impacts on downstream health-related outcomes. Interesting. Prior reviews have broadly summarized research on cannabis liberalization policies. Directed efforts are needed to synthesize more recent research that focuses on recreational cannabis legalization specifically. The current review summarizes existing studies using longitudinal designs to evaluate impacts on recreational cannabis legalization. Conclusions down here at the bottom of the abstract read, existing literature reveals a number of negative consequences of legalization, although the findings are mixed and generally do not suggest a large magnitude of short-term impacts. Great. So this could be a relevant source that I could use in favor of arguing against legalization, or a source that I could offer up to discuss within a context of trying to build a counter argument about maybe why arguments against legalization are short-sighted or flawed. So this is another example of an article that I think could be useful. Maybe it's got more meaningful information in it. It was published in Substance Abuse Research and Treatment, so it's going to be looking at it through that specific lens. I'm highly interested in this. I'm going to download the PDF to my desktop so I can come back and see it in the future. Let's do one more together, and then we'll move on to a different database. I'm just browsing the titles. Here's a Where Do We Go From Here in 2022 in Trends of Psychiatry and Psychotherapy. Here's another longitudinal cohort study. These are called reviews of literature. And there are articles that are published that bring together lots of different articles in one big article. It can be really useful to have something like this as part of your research process, much like the last one, because it's going to link out or cite many other types of articles that you might want to look at later. So let's go ahead and click on this one just to show what that looks like. We have here an article that goes through and provides the study estimated the likelihoods of individuals transitioning to different cannabis use status following the recreational cannabis legalization in the United States. We have a sense of what the participants were. This was a study and conclusions. There appears to be some evidence that recreational cannabis legalization is associated with elevated odds of transition to cannabis among youths and among adults. Could be meaningful, so I'm going to click PDF full text, pull this one up again. While I have this one open, I actually want to take a moment and go down to the bottom of this specific article just to show you what I was talking about previously, right? If the article is good enough for this source to cite, it's potentially good enough for us to cite. So you always want to check the ends of your articles to see what their bibliographies look like, to see if there are any interesting sources that you might want to bring forward in your own research process. Click download there. Before I move away from this specific article, I do want to show you one nice secret related to EBSCO that I think many of you are going to be really happy to see. And it involves a button that's here on the right. It's the Cite button. So when you click the Cite button, it will actually present you a pre-formatted citation for a bibliography page, either a references page in APA or a works cited page in MLA. So it will show you what that process is. You can actually come through, select all, copy, paste, take it over to the document that you're working on, and paste it on your bibliography. A nice perk of using the EBSCO database. Let's just take a look really quickly at the JSTOR database. As I said, we won't spend as much time in these other databases as we did in EBSCO, but I just want to show you generally what they look like and how they work. When we come here to when we come here to JSTOR, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to look up cannabis legalization. We're going to click search. Here's one on enhancing public safety. Here's one on how legalization could influence tax revenue. Here's one on legalization in Canada. Here's a book chapter on consequences of use. Here's a 2021 update on the effect of legalization. Think about my search terms. I can search within results. So I could say here, United States. This didn't seem to give me exactly what I wanted. It took me in a different direction. So I'm going to come back now. Add some more terms here. See if I can narrow my search results. I'm seeing some titles of articles that are repeats from the EBSCO database, but also different articles. I'm going to go ahead and take this one. This legalization could influence tax revenue, consumption, and public budgets. If I click the title, it's going to show me the first page of the article in the JSTOR preview. I could actually scroll through and look at more of the article if I want. If I've already decided it's interesting, I'm going to click download on this. I don't want to use the save function. Some students report positive usage when they click save and they can come back and find it later. Other students tell me once they close out of a browser, they lose all saved articles. So I always find that if there's at least a potential that I'm going to use it, I just prefer to download it and have a copy of it on my desktop. I can delete it later if that's what I decide to do, but it's a good opportunity for me to have that at play. So that's JSTOR. Project Muse and ProQuest, they work very similarly to JSTOR and EBSCO. You're going to be getting good scholarly sources back, and you can continue to download PDFs. I'm going to type in cannabis legalization, recreational, marijuana, United States, and see what I get back now from searching this way. Here's one called A Short History of Marijuana. Kind of interesting. Here's the one on, and notice when I click open chapters, these are all the chapters in the book that are relevant to my search term. So you can see chapter 8, chapter 11, chapter 12, and chapter 13, weighing the costs and benefits of legalization. I'm interested in this specific chapter, so I'm going to click this chapter. Wait for my computer to process. There we go. Now notice it's just downloaded the chapter that I'm interested in. And this specific chapter is, well, how many pages is this chapter? It's not much longer than an actual article would be. So 193 is the end page. Start page is 172, so a little over 20 pages. It's very similar to the length of an academic journal article. I'm going to go ahead and click download. A lot of the information related to this for bibliographic purposes are included here on the cover page of the article, and this could be helpful going forward. Let's see if there are any other. Here's one called Grassroots, the History of Cannabis in the American West. This is on medicinal, so not exactly what I'm looking for. Environmental science, public policy, and politics of marijuana. Low, slow, and in control. Colorado's experiment with legalized recreational marijuana. This is published by the University of Kansas Press. So this is a scholarly book that came out in 2018. Could be relevant to what I'm working on, could ultimately not be relevant. I'm going to click download. If I want to know more about the actual book itself, I can click on the title, and that's going to give me a greater sense of the actual book itself. It's going to give me the equivalent of an abstract, but this is a summary of what the book covers. It's the kind of thing that would probably show up on the back page or on a jacket, book jacket. So this is always an opportunity to learn more about this specific book if that's what I want to do. ProQuest Research Library functions, again, pretty much the same way as the others. Come in here and you can say, I want to search for keywords. I want to limit my results to full text. I want to limit my results to peer reviewed. I want to say what my sources are. I'm going to say scholarly journals because those are the preference when it comes to source quality. I'm going to say for my language, English, and for the document type, specifically, I am interested in literature reviews, general information, book chapters, articles, right? I'm actually going to leave document type empty just for the sake of starting my search result. Again, you can always come back and refine, but sometimes you don't want to box yourself in at the very start here. Let's just type in cannabis legalization and see where it takes us. Social clubs, adult care, adult use on the legal system, emerging issues, big business and equity challenges. So it turns out, here's one, the public health implications of legalizing the production and sale of cannabis for medicinal and recreation use. Interesting. Eastern Caribbean, South Africa. You can see, again, I made the mistake of not adding in more search parameters. So I'm going to come through and say cannabis legalization and add marijuana legalization. I'm going to add a row and say the United States. I'm going to try my search again. Oops. The spinning wheel on the search button. So we're going to wait and ride that out. Always awkward when you're recording. And the search is not working. So I'm going to delete the row, actually. Maybe that's part of my problem. Well, here, I'm going to clear the form. Sometimes you just have to do it again. Scholarly journals, go. So here's another similar article, implications of marijuana decriminalization and legalization on crime in the United States. Full text, looks interesting. Again, could be relevant. I'm going to click download PDF. Allow. It's also providing me suggested articles. It's a new feature from ProQuest. But for my purposes, not exactly what I need. Here's a relatively new article on exploring frameworks of state policy characteristics. I suspect this article is going to give us really good information on how it looks different in other states. And so that could be interesting. I'm going to click download there. And I saw another one as I was clicking through, marijuana legalization and nosy neighbor states. So that's kind of funny. As more states proceed with legalization, questions have arisen about how to accommodate those states that wish to retain prohibition. So again, pretty interesting, certainly kind of relevant to what Indiana is experiencing with its multiple neighbors having legalized marijuana for recreational use. So again, this is a fascinating article. This one's a full text. We can do full text PDF. Download the PDF that way. Excellent. Okay, so that gives you a sense of where to find sources within the library. Now I'm going to go to Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a great resource that's housed outside of our library. You can find it at scholar.google.com. It essentially uses the search algorithms of Google, but returns only scholarly articles or book chapters. So if I say cannabis legalization, here is what a search page looks like. So what is included in this specific search page? Well, there are three columns that you get on a Google Scholar search page. The first column includes your filters. So you can say, I only want things since 2019, or I can sort by a range, or I can sort by relevance, or I can change what the type is. The middle column are actual search results for articles that have been placed on websites. The right column includes PDF copies of articles. So when you are searching, let's see if we can find an example of this that might be interesting. Okay, policy designs for cannabis legalization, starting with the 8 Ps. Kind of interesting. There's something about that title that really, and this one too, did we make a mistake? That also is an interesting title to me. So I'm going to click this one first. This takes me to the website for TNF Online. You can see that there's a copy of the abstract, and then there's usually a button to try to get access to the full article. This specific full article is not available except through purchase. And you, as a college student, have already purchased items through your tech fees and your library fees, so you should never pay for any kind of source. When you use Google Scholar, you have a couple of options. Option number one is maybe I could take this article, copy the name of it, come over to the library, go to EBSCO, and say, well, that particular version of the library is behind a paywall. So I'm going to see if there is a version of this article that is available on EBSCO. I'm going to click search. And there it is, right? So I've clicked on the main article, and using the title and reading the abstract, I think, oh, that's really fascinating. I want that, but there's no access to a full text. However, I can use the title of the article as my search term, go into EBSCO, find the full text of the article, and then download a copy of it using my student and college access points for this specific article. Another option that you have within Google Scholar is the center column provides a link for how to access the article through the direct website, but there can also be a link on the right column that shows you where other organizations have a copy of the article saved as a PDF as part of their website. So if we were to click this PDF, ssrc.org, it would also pull up the exact same article, which then I could download again if that's what I wanted to do. We'll see if this one also provides us. Sometimes when you click it, it does give you a full text option. Let's see if we can download PDF. Here's an example of where a full text of the article is made available. Click download, go back. So it's not always that the middle column is going to lead you to a paywall. But sometimes it does. And when it does, you can use the title as a search term in another database, or use the column on the right to access a direct link. Here's an example of a critique of cannabis legalization proposals in Canada. This one does not have a right PDF. We could use that as a starting point for a search in another database. Sometimes you're going to find it. Sometimes it's in EBSCO, sometimes it's in JSTOR, sometimes it's in ProQuest. And I think that's the idea that I want to leave you with. Good researching in college courses is a question of stamina. It's a question of intentionality. It's having an open mind and the ability to say, well, that didn't take me where I wanted, or that source didn't give me exactly what I wanted. And so being willing to have multiple tabs open across the browser, jumping back and forth between tabs, copying a title from one, pasting it into the database of another, and seeing if you can find a copy of it, scrolling down to the sources that are cited in an article and copying those titles and searching for those things. Good research at the college level involves versatility, it involves flexibility, it involves curiosity, and it involves accessing a lot of information, and then only using the best information. Sometimes students freak out a little bit when I tell them this, but my actual recommendation is if the professor's prompt says you need to use 5 sources, you should be trying to find 10 or 15 sources. Then you can pull information from the best 5 sources. And sometimes when you access 10 or 15 sources and only 5 are required, you end up pulling a lot of information from multiple sources. So you have a paper where only 5 are required, but you end up citing 8 or 9. That looks great and shows the professor that you were really invested in the topic. And it really is not that much more work as long as you know where to go, where to click, how to search, how to read an abstract. And then you can jump around inside the article to find the passages or the information that's really going to help support you. So it does not need to be more work than it really feels like it sometimes is, as long as you're being efficient and using your time wisely. Okay, that's going to bring this video to a close. This was just a general overview on how to find good scholarly sources. We used one example of a controversial public policy issue, but the same principle could have been in effect if you were writing an essay and needed sources on Shakespeare's Hamlet, or if you were writing an essay and needed sources on personal perceptions of what it's like to visit the national parks, or if you were using sources to try to find information related to a certain period of history to talk about a work of art that was produced during that time, or a philosophical article talking about certain key ideas. I hope this video was helpful to you on how to find good sources and provided you with a list of tips and tricks to make you better and more versatile and more determined as you are in the process of gathering sources for your papers. Other videos in this series will talk about how to read sources, how to navigate sources, how to pull information, how to weave information, the different types of sources. So I hope you have an opportunity to tune in and watch those videos as they get posted. Thanks so much.